So there are a lot of videos on YouTube about passive income, but most of these videos are basically about if you have $1,000, here's how you invest it to make passive income. However, what about a video about how to get to your first $1,000 in passive income? Now, me right now, I make around $360 a day from passive income, which by the way, sounds impressive, but in reality, it's about $15 an hour. The only difference is that basically I make that 15 bucks an hour, 24 hours a day. And by the way, interesting fact here, that's the minimum wage in New York. And that was always my goal. I wanted to get to the minimum wage, but 24 hours a day, because I knew that was gonna be a big deal. Now, one big thing is this, guys. A lot of people think that basically the more sources you have for passive income is the best thing possible. But in reality, you can have two sources. That 360 bucks comes from two sources. You have the stock market and you have my business. So you can have a business with over 100 customers, and that is 100 different sources. You can have an investment portfolio where you just invest into one index with 500 companies, and you have basically 500 different sources of income in a way. So focus on going deep, not so wide, because if you spread your money way too much, you're probably not gonna make a good return on it. Now in this video, I'm gonna teach you exactly how to get to your first $1,000 in passive income. However, I gotta be honest, this is gonna take work. It's not gonna be easy, but to me, it was never important to get to my first 1,000. It was important to get to my first bill. So I just wanted to basically make enough passive income initially to cover my haircut. Then once I got there, it was to cover, for example, my phone bill, then my internet bill, then my rent, and then things got more and more and more, but it all starts little by little. Each bill matters. So 1,000 is a lot, but just cover each bill step by step. Before you know it, you get to 1,000, and that's gonna be awesome. Now, here's the first way to get to your first $1,000 in passive income, and it's gonna be through building a business. Now, I've built a lot of businesses, and a lot of them have failed, but the most successful one by far has been YouTube. But before YouTube, I had another one, which is also very successful. But the point is, a business can be a great source of income. And my definition of having a business is to try to build a business where it doesn't need you to operate. So don't get into a business where basically you have to do all the cooking in order to sell the cupcakes. No, you buy the cupcakes somewhere else, you ship them out, and your job is to basically check everything out to make sure everything is basically running. But for example, when you look at my YouTube business here, so for example, when you go to YouTube and you type in, for example, TommyBryson, the first number that you might look at isn't, for example, the videos I made, but in reality is usually subscribers. But in reality, the way I see this business, which by the way, YouTube is a business. You provide a service which is free to the audience, but by showing them ads, you actually get paid, but they also get rewarded by either entertainment or information. It's a very cool business. I love it. Always wanted to do it since I was basically 11 years old. Fun fact, I've been doing videos since 11 years old. But if you take a look at this, for example, 1,103 videos is actually about over 4,412 hours of work, and that's actually a very low estimate. So when you take a look at the money that I basically make from YouTube, that's more like around $20 to $21 an hour. And when you break that down like that, the only exciting thing about it is that basically you make that money from the work you already did, but you make it continuously. So while I sleep, I make money. While I shower, I make money. And that's the cool thing. But the day I stop making content, that content is still going to make me more money. By the way, when is that day coming? I'm gonna tell it to you right now, when I'm around 99 years old or so. So from a business standpoint, you're trying to get into something that you basically like, you're good at, and is gonna make you money. These three things right here are very important, because if you are good at it, but you don't like it, you're probably gonna be miserable. And if you are good at it and you like it, but it doesn't make you any money, it's more like a hobby, like me and singing, all right? So it's about finding this very good balance. Tommy, what are some good ideas to make passive income from a business? Well, I'll give you two, and those two contain, for example, a multitude of ideas, over like around 150. The first one is a book. It's called 100 Side Hustles by Chris Guillebeau. And number two is gonna be The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And that book right there in combination is going to give you ideas for side hustles, but on top of that, it's going to give you ways to turn those side hustles into a way to basically into businesses that don't need you to operate. That's the number one thing. If a business does not need you to operate and you just need to show up, for example, an hour or 2 hours a day, then in reality, it's passive. It's a lot more passive than going to work for 8 hours a day. So one big thing is misconception. Passive income is not I sleep, I basically earn money all the time. No, there is maintenance going on here, but it's just a lot less, a lot more enjoyable, and gives you a lot more free time to do what you actually want to do. It all depends on what you get into. YouTube is passive because the work I've done before, it still earns me money, but I still show up every single day to make even more content because it's what I like to do, okay? That's the idea. A lot of upfront work that turns into passive and earns you more money overall. And by the way, a little tip is when you do start this business and you have customers, just kind of average it out. How many customers do I need to get to $1,000 based on the product that I basically sell and what my profits actually are? So if you're profiting $1, obviously you're gonna need to have 1,000 customers or 1,000 sales. That's a lot. But if you're making a product for $10 or $20, you obviously need to make less sales and also less customers, okay? But if it's recurring, you also need to have, for example, a lot of volume actually going on, okay? So the thing that helps me the most is always break things down very small. So if 1,000 seems like a lot, break it down to $10, $100, $200, and basically just get there, and everything is a milestone until you get to 1,000. Now, number 2, guys, is going to be securities. And this is by far the easiest way to make passive income, by putting money into the stock market. And people hear that and they get very excited. I hear that and I hear, for example, a lot of competition and also limited returns. Because remember, the easier something is to get into, then there is more people getting into it, and there's always going to be less money to get out of it because more people are there, all right? Now, here's the idea. When I say securities, I mean, for example, stocks, bonds, indexes, and also, for example, ETFs, securities overall, okay? And the idea is that you basically grab your money and you put it to work by giving it to somebody else to actually make them more money. But by you doing this, you're taking a risk because if their business goes down, you lose your investment because you become a part owner in that business, right? So you need to be rewarded handsomely or appropriately for you taking on that risk. Now, here's a piece of information you probably will not hear from another channel. And the idea is that if you're gonna put money, for example, into the stock market, how much money is an appropriate return to receive for the risk that you're basically taking? So for example, I invested around $300,000 at around 12%. That's what I expect to basically make. And that is around $36,000 a year in passive income from my $300,000 investment, which sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but you can basically get there step by step by using compound interest. And by the way, making 12% on 10,000, that's around like 1,120 bucks. So you can get there very easily via the stock market. 10,000 gets you to your goal of passive income of $1,000 over, okay? So that's awesome. But overall, how do you quantify this? How do you make sense of it? The answer is, it's all based on interest rates. Here's what I mean. The Fed sets the interest rates. And this also, for example, affects the Treasury. And in reality, when you have the Treasury and they go ahead and say, hey, we're willing to pay you on this bond for 10 years, let's say 10%. What does that mean? It means that if they're willing to pay you 10%, that's going to be your return. And they're basically no risk because they can just basically print money and always pay you. There's no risk of you losing any money. In reality, you always have to receive more than 10% if they're paying you 10% because you're getting 10% without taking on any risk. So when you go out there to the stock market, you want to make more than 10% because you are taking some risk by putting your money into one of those companies. That is the idea. So when you consider how much money to make, you always have to consider, for example, the interest rates. More rationally, it's more like, you know, they might pay you like 2%, but then you also include inflation, which is like 3%. So now you're at 5%. And then you have, for example, the fees and everything like that and taxes. So another 1%. So now you're like 2 plus 3, that's 5, plus 1, that's 6. So that's 6. Well, I want to earn a profit, and a profit to me is a good 2% on that. So that's like 8%. Then you have dividends and so on. So that's how you get to a rational point of like, I want to make anywhere from 8 to 12% as far as the stock market, but it's all based on interest rates. All right, interest rates are super duper important. And by the way, if you want to copy the way I invest into 5 ETFs. And by the way, ETFs are just indexes that are basically traded on the stock market. Same thing in a way, okay? But in reality, if you want to copy my investments, I have a link down below for M1 Finance. When you click that link, it takes you to my investments. You can either do it in M1 Finance or do it with your broker. I don't care. But the reason I invest the way I invest is because basically I want to make sure that the only way I lose if it's the whole world goes down, because I'm invested literally in the whole planet. All right, that's the idea. So that's one big way. So to get to $1,000 in the stock market in passive income, and you're making, let's say, 10%, well, if you have $10,000 invested at 10% annually, you're gonna make $1,000. That's the cool thing. But the bad thing is you don't take the money out, because if you take the money out, make a profit, then in reality, you're gonna have less money, because now you have to pay the taxes and everything else, okay? So it's all about letting that money compound into more money. To me, the stock market is an avenue of passive income that you never utilize until it grows to a point where you can just take it out and never have to worry about running out. Does that make sense? It's like, for example, if you have $10,000 in the stock market, which earns you like around $1,000 a year, and you start taking money out way too soon, then you never allow the money any time to grow. But if you have $1 million in there, until, for example, $10,000 a year, it doesn't really affect it, because you're gonna be making so much more money than you're basically spending. That's the idea, okay? So you don't take out money until you have more than enough. Now, number 3 is going to be this, real estate. Now, real estate, believe it or not, is actually my least like way when it comes to earning passive income, and the answer is simple. It's a lot harder and more complicated. And here's what I mean. To earn money in real estate from passive income, everyone makes it sound very like easy or so on, but the thing is this. You make money in real estate when you first buy the deal. Meaning, for example, if you want to live next to me, which is in the area that I live, the houses here go for like around $160,000. You don't buy a home for this amount and make money in real estate. No, you always buy it at a discount. So by buying it at a discount, you get built-in equity automatically, because basically you bought something at a discount. So let's say, for example, you want to buy a home in my area for a 20% discount, meaning you're going to pay 80%. You're basically buying for like around $128,000, which means when you buy this deal, you already made money. Now, if you rent this property for like around the going rent, which is around $800 in this area, you're gonna earn around 7.5% on your return, which is around like $9,600 a year, if I'm not mistaken. Because again, 800 times 12, that's around 9,600. You put in $128,000, something like that. So the return's around, the return's around 7.5 exactly, okay? That's the idea. So when you look at that math, you're like, wow, that's a good return. That's appropriate, but you have to put in a lot of money, and the odds of you getting a steep discount of 20% when everyone else is looking for a home and interest rates are also low are actually very low. So the money in real estate for most investors is going to be made where no one wants to actually go. No family wants to go into a trash house and have to remodel it, so that's where you want to go as an investor. But when you go into that side of real estate and you're basically getting into rehabs, you ever heard about BRRRR, where you buy, remodel, refinance, and then you rent or whatever? The idea is when you get into that, guess who's your competition? It's not idiots, it's investors too, and they know exactly how it works, and they have a lot of money too. So then the idea is same thing. If you're gonna buy a home that is actually worth $160,000, but you're actually gonna get into the deal for, let's say, for example, $100,000, because basically the home is actually not in good condition, well, now you can put in $20,000 or $28,000. It's fully remodeled. You basically rent it out and this and that, and then that's how you actually earn the money. But it's a lot more competition. It's a lot more work. It's a lot more complex. But is it possible? The answer is 100% it is. So this home that I actually bought right now, in reality, it kind of is a wedge deal, like Meet Kevin says from YouTube too. Because this home, I bought it for $130,000. I put in around $50,000, but if I get it appraised right now, it can appraise for like around $200,000. So I haven't built in equity of around $20,000 in excess, but anything can happen in real estate, so it could go down at any moment, but who knows? But the money is made when you buy in. So the idea is you buy at a discount, And when you're also renting, you're also trying to get a good return on your capital. So if you're into a deal, again, it's a lot more complex with real estate, you see? So if you're into a deal, let's say the home costs $160,000, right? You're gonna put in, for example, 20% for the down payment. So that's around $32,000. If you wanna earn an appropriate return on your money, which is, let's say, like around 15% on your money off of the real estate, that's around $4,800. So divided by 12, you gotta earn somewhere like around $400 a month. But remember, you gotta earn $400 a month on your money while also trying to basically rent out the property, all right? And also having to pay the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the HOA, and all the maintenance of the property. So on a deal like this, you won't really make that. So these numbers that I gave you only work, for example, if you're paying, for example, like almost cash and you kind of get the return and you also buy the discount. When you're doing, for example, a cash on cash return, which is basically you put in extra for the down payment and then you're trying to get money out of the deal via your rent. Basically saying in a simple format, this person pays me $800. The expenses are only like $600 with the mortgage, so I profit $200. Those deals are a lot more rare and require a lot more work for you to actually find them. But because there are a lot more rare and requires more work, less people are willing to do it, which gives you an opportunity to actually get it done. But it usually does require a lot more capital, usually does require a lot more risk, because the way to actually be able to purchase something for like over $100,000 is by having some money on the side, which is like, let's say 10-20%, but then you're also borrowing that money from the bank, and then you're also relying on the tenant to actually rent and stay there and not have, for example, a lot of tenant turnover, because that can also ruin your whole margins, okay? So it's a lot more complicated, but if it sounded interesting to you, it could be good for you. So I would recommend go on YouTube, type in Graham Stephan, type in Meet Kevin. These guys are very good at real estate, and then also read books on real estate and then get into it when you're actually ready. For me, I like buying real estate with cash. That way I don't have to worry about all the risks associated with it, and then the money I make is my money and I take on a lot less risks. For them, they do it the opposite way. And that is all the time I have for today, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified, comment down below if you learned something, and on top of that, comment down below passive, so I know you made it all the way to the end of the video. On top of that, over here is another video, and over here is my face. Click and subscribe, and as always, long-term team officially out.